So, I've never actually sat down and outright ranked my personal favorite fighting game series, like in a list, video or otherwise. But I can comfortably say that Samurai Shodown would definitely be on the higher end of my top 10. It's one of a handful of fighting games that's constantly in the conversation about underrated fighting game franchises. It stands out largely because of its playstyle. Whereas most other fighting games were centered around fast-paced, combo-heavy gameplay, Samurai Shodown was more slow-paced and methodical. Seeing that fighting games with the former qualities proved to be more popular, Samurai Shodown remained a cult favorite title. Despite this, the series has managed to last longer than most other niche fighting games, including a new installment released back in 2019. Also, for the sake of clarity, I'll refer to this game as Samurai Shodown 7 from here on. Equipped with a new 2.5D look and some cool, fun new characters mixed with many returning favorite characters and gameplay that was, in essence, a strong return to form, Samurai Shodown 7 was quite a strong return for the franchise. It was always hilarious to me when people would imply that I hate Samurai Shodown 7 because I criticized the game's bad netcode. You want to hear me talk about a Sam Show game that I despise? You see the title. In fact, even to this day, Samurai Shodown Sen is still the #1 fighting game I ever regret buying. Not just playing, buying. It's far past the only horrible Samurai Shodown game, as Warrior's Rage on the PlayStation was also met with a lot of derision. Possible future episode? We'll see. When you compare the two though, SNK was able to rebound quicker from Warrior's Rage than Samurai Shodown Sen, as there was an 11-year gap between it and Sam Show 7. Remember when Embrace Death was the hashtag slogan for Sam Show 7? That slogan would have been more appropriate for Sam Show Sen because it could have easily killed off the franchise for good. This is doomed from the start. So if you're new to this series, the way we go about this is not all doom and gloom. We also try to look at things that were done right with a game, character, or what say you. Things that are car wrecks from start to finish are not always 100% bad. Sometimes there are good things that companies don't really invest in, which can additionally contribute to the downfall. Like in the previous episode, Shune, I think, had a decent amount of good stuff going for him, being one of KOF's more underdog main protagonists, a trait that SNK just really didn't lean in like they could've. However, I still consider that episode to be a failure, seeing that we don't really know for sure if Shune's run as a KOF protagonist is actually over. Thankfully, we won't have to worry about that with this episode. Everything with Sam Show Sen has been said and done, thank goodness. In the case of Sam Show Sen, the things that SNK purely got right about this game are trivial. The music and art direction are literally the best things about this game. Even for an abysmal game like Sen, the soundtrack is still great. The music literally got me through dealing with the game's resident annoyance that is Draco. Kinda sounds like if Dandy J from Waku Waku 7 had his theme song redone by the late great Ennio Morricone. I've always and still believe that Samurai Shodown has some vastly underrated OSTs. Their dedication to more traditional cinematic music added a little something different to a genre where most of the OSTs are more modern. Even when Sam Show dabbled with more modern musical influences, especially in Sam Show 7, the OSTs are still top-notch. The art direction for this game is also excellent, and bear in mind I'm talking about everything outside of the gameplay. And spoiler, we will get to that momentarily. do not worry. The traditional Japanese-inspired artwork with the game's packaging, character art, and throughout the game's many menus is just majestic. This aesthetic is further strengthened by certain transitions, such as this particular sequence leading to the character select screen. Again, despite the overall quality of Samurai Sen, if someone were selling prints or wall scrolls of this kind of artwork from the game, I'd buy it. That's pretty much it for things that Samurai Sen got entirely right, if you ask me. There's a reason I emphasize this statement with words like entirely or purely, the latter of which was used earlier. Also, to kinda jump ahead, one thing I won't mention going forward are the fatalities. I personally have a mixed feeling about them at the very best. On one hand, I can kinda see where some people were coming from when they said they were in poor taste. On the other hand, I totally get how some people see them as befitting and a staple of the series. I almost feel like it was a little bit more over the top in Sen as a response to the criticism directed at the previous Sam show, that being 6, for the complete lack of blood. Random little side note, all this talk about blood versus no blood reminds me of how awkward Shizamaru's SSM looks in Sam Show 7 without the blood. Like, I used to joke that his brutal slash was so pristine he knocked the sweat off of his opponent, thus explaining the rain that followed after. Still looks weird. But yeah, that's basically it. I really tried to find as many great things as I could with revisiting this game, but it was just hella difficult for me. As always, you're more than welcome to comment anything you think Samurai Sen got right. With all that being said, let's move on. So, despite the fact we are in the what SNK got wrong section, this first thing isn't a total failure. I feel SNK kinda sorta learned from Samurai Warriors Rage. In that game, SNK leaned heavily into a new generation with its roster, as Haomaru, Nakaruru, and Rimururu are the only classic characters that make any major appearances. This kinda makes sense when you consider that Warriors Rage is the final game in the Samurai timeline, with the story being set in the year 1811. Still, as it is with most longtime fighting games, most fans aren't too pleased when veteran characters have a smaller presence on the playable roster. Samurai Sen has a playable roster of 26 characters, with the amount of new and returning characters being split down the middle at 13 a pop. Though this could also be seen as trivial, another thing SNK got right with this game is making the two boss characters Draco and Golba unlockable, because making them DLC, sure. Overall, the new characters are a mixed bag. There are some solid inclusions, Suzuhime and Takechiyo, characters with potential that could have flourished in a better game, Jay, Angelica, Kyrian, Blackhawk, and Kimhei Ryong, and then there are just some downright bland characters. This generic Viking, this generic knight, this generic European samurai, and this generic old guy. The latter two groups of characters suffer from another mistake this game makes, which I'll just include in this section as well: too much moveset cloning. Most of the newcomers' movesets primarily consist of moves lifted from other characters on the roster. To be fair, there are some modifications and differences with each character still. Garros and Walter lift several moves from Wanfu, with the former using his head and belly more than the other two. Kyrian and Jay copy moves from Charlotte and Takechiyo respectively, but both have unique stances in their arsenal. While it's commendable that these new characters' movesets aren't total copy-paste, the fact that these are fresh new characters sharing a considerable amount of moves with other characters on the roster, especially given Samshow's gameplay, which, patience, we're getting there, that's pretty off-putting as it reduces their originality. It's one thing if two characters with very similar movesets had some type of connection, such as being trained by the same person a la Ken and Ryu, but that's the case for only a few characters, with Kyrian and Charlotte probably being the best example. So again, the new characters aren't entirely bad, but there were clearly more misses than hits. Simply put, this game's graphics were outdated even at the time of its release. I usually don't like harping on a game's graphics too much unless they literally make my eyes hurt looking at you, Infrared Scorpion. Samurai Sen's graphics aren't that grating, but they are the furthest from being pleasing. But it looks better than the other 3D Samurai games. I mean, yeah, but try comparing Samurai Sen to other 3D fighting games released around the same time in 2008. We had a few that were updates to previously released games, such as Tekken 6 Bloodline Rebellion and Virtua Fighter 5R. We also had the likes of Castlevania Judgment. Like Samurai Sen, this game also wasn't warmly received and I'd say it's better looking than Samurai Sen in the graphics department, but not by much. That game had its own issues with its character designs. Then of course, there was Soul Calibur 4. Even people who love Samurai Shodown more than Soul Calibur, myself included, would admit that Soul Calibur 4 is the better looking game. No contest. Samurai Sen was released roughly 3 years after the inception of the 7th generation of gaming consoles, and yet it looked like something straight out of the 6th generation. With all that being said, I have a theory as to why the graphics for Samurai Sen were so dull and lazy. I don't have the most solid proof for this, but the timing is pretty interesting. While Samurai is a great series that has endured for quite a long time despite some setbacks, it's still a relatively niche title compared to other household name fighting games. One such household name fighting game was set to make a comeback not all that long after Samurai Sen had first hit the arcades. Yeah, good old KOF 12. While this game is usually ranked as one of the less favorable KOFs, many people point to the visual overhaul as one of the game's strongest qualities. SNK would then lean all the more into this graphic style in the much more adored KOF 13. I personally feel SNK clearly invested more time, energy, and dare I say, money into this look for their biggest fighting game franchise. It totally paid off. KOF 13 is still loved by many people even to this day. Again, this is just my personal theory. Feel free to let me know if you agree or disagree below. Oh boy, we finally made it. This here is of course not even just me talking, but many people feel was the gravest mistake SNK made with this game. I know the graphics would probably be a big enough turnoff for most people, but graphics are only one part of a game. Take KOF 12 for instance. Nice to see you again. Why is such a gorgeous looking game often ranked among the worst in the series? Simply put, SNK invested more into the game's graphical makeover than the gameplay and presentation, making the game feel incomplete. The company not only learned from these mistakes, but practically upped the ante with KOF 13, of course, thus leading to it becoming a classic, of course. Take another game like Towerfall for instance. That game looks hella retro, but people loved it because of the interesting and addictive gameplay. Samurai Sen not only looks bad, but the gameplay is insultingly trash. While the previous 3D Samurai games made significant changes to the gameplay, at least those games still kept a Samurai essence about them. Samurai Sen plays like that other 3D fighting game that we mentioned earlier, the one that I said looks graphically better. No, not that one. Yes, that one. How so? For starters, there is no light, medium, and heavy slash. Instead, there's horizontal and vertical slash. On top of that, we have unblockable attacks which may remind you of the unblockable flaming weapon attacks in Soul Calibur. Finally, the weapon deflect in this game functions just like Soul Calibur's guard impact mechanic, albeit with much stricter timing. In case you aren't familiar with Samurai, the gameplay is slower and more rooted in defensive play than most other fighting games, being mostly centered around getting high damage reward from landing very few punishes, further encouraging players to up their neutral game. Samurai Sen's gameplay emphasizes none of that and is more of an offensive game focused on combos involving launchers and juggles, which in essence made it like almost every other 3D fighting game on the market at the time. The gameplay's abandonment of Samsho's roots even affects returning characters, as most of them don't really play like they used to. Now, to be fair, SNK did an okay job at incorporating some of their signature moves, but like the new character inclusions, again, there was much more disappointment. Now, I can hear some people saying, but it's a 3D Samsho, it's not gonna play anything like the old games. You know, the hilarious thing about myself and others calling Samurai Shodown Sen a Soul Calibur knockoff is how Maru stays more true to his Samsho roots in his Soul Calibur 6 guest appearance than he does in a Samsho game trying to rip off Soul Calibur. Sure, in Soul Calibur 6 he had a larger move list because it's freaking Soul Calibur, but all of his special moves weren't sloppily incorporated into the game. In Samurai Shodown Sen, some of his and other returning characters' key techniques are basically neutered for the sake of realism, with projectiles mostly being affected. Instead of just telling you who all got their projectile specials neutered or removed, I'll just tell you who actually kept theirs in this game. Galford and Hanzo. That's it, far as returning characters are concerned. Again, roughly everyone else's projectile specials are either entirely gone or repurposed into close range attacks. In Soul Calibur 6, Haomaru's projectiles function like they always have, just in a 3D format. See also Samsho 64 and 64 Warrior's Rage, not the PlayStation one. While projectiles are merely one particular type of attack, they have been a staple of Samurai Shodown's slow, purposeful, and for a lack of a better term, lame gameplay. Also, and I'll acquiesce to this just being a nitpick, but still, characters known to have pets like Nakoruru and Galford don't fight alongside their pets like they used to. Granted, Poppy is one of Galford's projectile attacks, and Nakoruru can summon Mamahaha and glide around with her, but come on, why keep them off screen? But Chris, you're just arguing aesthetics. Again, just like with the whole moveset cloning issue that I mentioned in the previous entry, this here immensely suppresses the uniqueness of the playable characters. One thing you'll hear a couple of diehard retro fanboy purists say is that newer games lack the charm of old school games, which, I never understood personally. Charm is something that's a matter of someone's personal taste rather than something you can numerically measure on a scale or whatnot. Different people find different things charming. I don't get how people intend to use that of all things to put old games over new ones, but hey, that's just me though. In saying all that, I kinda kneecapped my upcoming point because I was going to say that Nakoruru and Galford having their pets in combat right by their sides added to their charm, but hey, if you don't find that charming, I feel little to no one could debate that this didn't make them unique. It's sad because they were with them in previous 3D games. Why not in Sen? Because realism strikes yet again. This character is so stupid. With how ridiculously busted he is, I'm surprised Draco was the mid-boss and not the final boss. Golba is irritating, don't get it twisted, but Draco is arguably more obnoxious. I would criticize the fact his Winchester rifle is a ginormous anachronism, but seeing how I ragged on the negative effects of realism on Samurai Shodown Sen, I think that may come off hypocritical. Still, that doesn't mean it isn't insanely objectionable. Aside from the fact that so many characters lost their signature projectile special moves, and yet this here cowpoke is able to freely give you bullet hell, the gunshots are wicked fast and unfreaking blockable. Now you're probably thinking, wouldn't you just sidestep it, bro? To which the answer is, on paper, yes. However, sidestepping is stiff and next to ineffective in this game. The shots can also be ducked or jumped, which work a bit better than sidestepping. However, Draco can also create space between him and his opponent with a backflip and instantly follow up that with a shot. Draco is so broken that you could legit set the AI to expert and score back-to-back perfects like the AI was in Sleepwalker difficulty. Yeah, even the expert level CPU has issues dodging bullets, further proof that sidestepping is trash tier in this game. When you're fighting mid-boss Draco, if you manage to get close to him, you could literally spam this game's lousy throws. Yeah, even throws in this game are dumb, highly damaging, easily exploitable, and everybody basically has the same type of basic throw animation, a knee to the midsection. Thankfully, characters like Black Hawk have some special command grabs that are not bad actually. Still, Draco though. This guy exhibits a level of degeneracy that would make Happy Chaos rage quit. Samurai Shodown Sen hasn't aged well in the slightest. Oddly enough, this wouldn't be the last major SNK fighting game that got a bunch of crap for its graphics. You know what I'm talking about. KOF 14 was seen as a massive downgrade by many fans compared to the gorgeous, resplendent, and glorious KOF 13. SNK clearly took those criticisms to heart as the first big patch of KOF 14 improved the in-game graphics. Whether or not you think they did the game justice is irrelevant here. I'm just pointing out how SNK reacted to the criticisms towards that game's graphics versus Samsho Sen's, and yeah, enhanced graphics patches were a thing during the 7th generation. Fallout 3, which was released around the same time as Samsho Sen, had gotten a patch that boosted its graphics. Whether or not SNK had the capability to do this, I'm not entirely sure, but then again, recall my theory from earlier, I feel they were more fixated on giving their flagship fighting game that big makeover more than anything else. Also, like the other 3D Samsho games, a load of characters in this game will unfortunately be confined to just this game. Again, it's a shame seeing that some of them would have flourished more in better games. I'd definitely love to see some of them break through that barrier like Shiki did. Given Suzuhime's popularity, which still remained even to this day if you recall the Samsho 7 poll, she would have been a great candidate for this. And just to throw my extra little bit of 2 cents into this, I personally feel like Kyrian and Angelica could have really been breakout characters in Samsho 7, seeing how that game's newcomers were handled. The gameplay though, oh my god, that is Samsho Sen's biggest sin, and I hate the fact that I made that joke. I'm all for experimenting and switching things up because everyone kinda has that same concern over their methods and acts or whatnot running dry. This just wasn't it though. Clearly SNK agreed because Samsho went back to the series' gameplay roots and came with a really delightful graphic style as well as some cool, interesting newcomers. Samsho 7 was an amazing comeback game. It literally gave me a character that quickly became one of my all-time favorites. Seriously, Darlie Dagger is easily in my top 3. She could even be number 1. If Samsho 7 is the last hurrah for Samsho, then great freaking job SNK. Samsho Sen could have easily been a true franchise killer, and I don't want to live in that timeline. And that's the episode. Whew. Thankfully, I can actually not lose any sleep over this one, as I mentioned earlier, because everything with Samsho Sen has been all said and done, so no hijinks or anything like that. I don't think there's really much to revisit with this one, but hey, if you all get a good conversation going down there, I will definitely revisit and respond to some of your questions, your concerns, your corrections, but also let me know if you played Samsho Sen. Did you by chance like it? Do you also hate it? Let me know below, and until next time, I am Chrysalid, signing off. Y'all take care of yourselves, be cool to each other, stay hydrated, stay safe, all that good stuff. See ya.